Commission. Also present this evening, to my left, Jerry Huskin. Next is Randy Patterson, myself, then Jason Dagan, Colin Cecils, Director of Planning, Dave Sinopoli, Assistant Zoning Officer, and Alicia Hare, Assistant Zoning Officer. Absent this evening is Sarah Ryder, who may or may not join us later by Zoom. And we have 5 members present in the audience. And everybody can be heard. This is being recorded as announced. And I understand it's very sensitive, so if you want to speak what you want heard. With that, I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of March 14th, 2023. Just a note, there was no items April meeting, so we did not have a meeting in April, which is why we're doing March's minutes this evening. Maybe. Any mute the minutes? By minor, but under new business, second paragraph under A, the Dave Mellor letter, the Lancaster County letter was December 27th and not 22nd. It's the date difference. And then under item C, the American Lancaster County Planning Commission letter, the 4th line, actually January 27th, 2022. November 2022. There are no other comments. I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes and notice. Motion by Randy. Do I have a second? Second by Jason. All those in favor? Yes, we're going to go individually. Jerry, do you in favor of the motion? Yes. Yes. Jason, yes, and myself, yes. Approve. Thank you. Next item is old. None. New business. First item is Samuel and Sarah Glick. Samuel and Sarah King, 2303 Lehman Road, Lot Adam. You could have some graphics. Thank you. And if you could identify yourself and.
Yes. My name is Ron Hershey. I'm with Hershey Surveying. The Kings. Background of the property is Kings, 56 67 acre lot. Here it's farm. Next door, separate lot. 3.82. It is existing federal plot. It's much like the one. So when you add on creating the remaining lands, track would be about 1.5 acres. So the remaining lands, the green area would be added to the farm. That's basically this area here is a meadow pasture area. There's a small stream that kind of runs down through this side here. So that's the gist of the plan. We do have review comments both from LCPC and from DMA. The DMA letter was a second review. Dated March 31st, 2023. We do have some things that we'd like to bring before the Planning Commission as far as items that we're looking for waivers. One would be plan scale, as you can see on the cover sheet, we have a kind of a 200 scale overall. So that's a plan scale waiver for that, which is supported by the township engineer. Item number 2 would be waiver of improvements in right of way. We're obviously looking to do a block. We're not creating 2 lots with 2 lots we're starting with, 2 lots starting with. So again, we feel that's not necessarily an item that would be proportionate to what we're doing. Item number 3 would be curbing and road improvements as well. Again, kind of disproportionate to what we're doing, very rural setting. Looking for, just keeping a little bit of land in the farmland. Item number 4, it's just dates of approval and such. All of these, which item number 2, which is sewage, we plan on doing testing for primary backup. The remaining lands, we're obviously making it smaller. We want to make sure we have an adequate spot for sewer, but we're kind of holding on because we're really looking for direction, road improvements, and item number 4, subdivision land development is reserving area for park and rec. Again, that in your ordinance is something that's utilized for creating new lots. New lots, we're just reconfiguring lot lines. So we felt that didn't even play or even came into the equation here. If necessary, we would normally ask for a waiver of parks and rec fee for it. So some items to discuss. I'll let you ask any questions you may have.
Any issue?
So I think that's just related to the descriptions. Obviously, just why we want to need this problem.
This descriptions and recording the
Correct.
plan.
Cool.
Questions from this side?
0.27 acres.
Well, your issue with the dedication of land or the something we can't address specifically, we can talk about it, but it's up to the supervisors.
Understood.
So you can discuss that with supervisors.
Sure.
It's dedication.
He'd like to deny
And
narrative.
that's what the approach when you know them. I know that Jack be a discussion
Understood.
at the meeting and
And this board can provide recommendations for you fellows.
generally in our motions, we say we defer that to the supervisors. Okay. So I understand where you're coming. Makes sense. Discussion point with supervisors that is worthy of not forgetting when you meet with them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I was a little confused that you had that on your plan, that larger triangle, and often wasn't quite clear what you were- 7 acres were, but you've shown it now. It's the green and yellow. Okay, so the line kept going up and you had that bigger triangle.
Yeah, truth be told, it probably came up here at some point in time, 42, I think it came up for that.
And there was an early review. On your plan, not the larger scale, the smaller one, your notes. And what's the comments about agricultural? The 1.5 acres remaining from the original 3/7. No, I'll recite that being agriculture.
It's an agricultural zoned lot. The use will be residential, but the zoning is still agricultural.
Okay, so under existing, you have it as agriculture, and the proposed land use, you're still showing it as agriculture,
And
which it wouldn't follow. It could.
exactly. Yeah, speaking, yeah, you could not sell the lot and it would still be a meadow, but yeah, we're not proposing a house on this plan, so. Yeah. A 4 acre lot may not be necessarily considered agriculture. So.
Speaking for myself, the assumption of this side is it's probably being subdivided for residential.
It will, yes.
Because it wouldn't qualify for farming, so if you're not gonna make it residential, you're not gonna be able to farm it.
Understood, we're not changing the zoning. It's still remaining agricultural zoning, but it will be a residential use lot.
Under the site data, proposed land use. So one of the lots
Right.
proposed.
So the
Right,
yes, the zoning doesn't change.
right, the zoning doesn't change, so pick that on the right center. Proposed use, you have it as agriculture, and there were comments previously in the letters with DMA.
We can address that.
You need 10 acres or more.
So I think your proposed use,
We can address.
which is part of why it's being subdivided, is for residential. Yes, I agree. Zoning's not changing, but it's the use.
The intended proposed use.
You had raised a question in reference to the legal right of way.
Right, the legal right of way and road, which would include road widening and also curbing.
Solicitor has reviewed that request. Have you received that? Right? They have reviewed it. She has reviewed it. And her response, while the case did invalidate the board's action on the case that you had referenced, they did invalidate the board's action. The decision was based upon the fact that the underlying salvo did not explicitly require that land needed for road expansion be dedicated to the township. The ordinance only set forth the right-of-way width, but did not make dedication mandatory. Requirement was a discretionary one that could not have been known prior to submitting the application. By contrast, however, the East Lampeter Township SADO has very specific express requirements regarding road improvements and the right-of-way dedication, which are mandatory on the developer in section 501.A.11. So in this case, you need it. The case is different than your situation
I
here.
would strongly deny that. Her interpretation is not accurate, but that's neither here nor there. In this particular case, we are showing a proposed right of way, which the township is welcome to take. They have 21 years to take it from their recording the plan. So we are offering the dedication of right of way for the township to take, if they wish, to show it as a planting purpose for setback improvements in the future. Secondly, though, the bigger items is the request by your township engineer for recommendation for road improvements, which again is disproportionate to what we're doing. Creating any new lots, we're just merely reconfiguring. The lot frontage is about 500 feet. It would really be, as that case presented, there is no burden of increased municipal use. There's no increase in municipal traffic. It's 2 lots. When we're done with the that'll still be 2 lots. Again, those basically are handcuffing Barbara, anyone from creating a new lot or changing lot configuration that could possibly result in, you know, $200,000 or $300,000 worth of road improvements in the future. May not be now, may not be 10 years from now, but at some point in time, it could happen. And that burden is just disproportionate to what we're proposing.
That the road improvements would only exist in front of that, as opposed to road improvements on Lehman Road.
That's not the way it was presented. That's not the way it was presented. And nor the west, you know, even with it being road frontage improvements on the proposed lot, that still would be disproportionate to, you know, what we're doing. I mean, he could literally sell that breaker lot just the way it is, and nobody bats it. But by changing the lot lines, now we're being, I hate to use the word held hostage, but basically incurring an extreme expense or possibly increasing extreme expense to put improvements along the frontage of even the smaller. You know what I mean? Yeah, that just doesn't seem proportionate. So, and you know, if it's a 25 subdivision, I understand that's increased traffic, that's increased burdens on the municipalities, increased road improvements that are going to need to happen. Here we're just taking 1 lot and adding some to another. We have 2 at the beginning, we have 2 at the end. We're not creating any new lots. And I think your ordinance refers to in most cases, which is where I think your solicitor missed, it's related to new lots. We're not creating new lots. We have 2. We're going to end with 2. There's no new lots to be created. We're reconfiguring a lot, but it's not a new lot.
Yeah. Depends how you define new lot.
I don't think it does. How many? And at the end of the day, we'll have 2 here. I think there's no new, not making a third.
You'll have
2.
2 different lots or 2 new lots. They're not the same as they are now. So it's a matter of definition and interpretation. But we do have the opinion, see what the motion is here. Typically, if not for any waiver, we, you know, we do the deferral more so than not for the future. If something would happen, as Randy was saying, it wouldn't be just a segment of Lehman Road, but if Lehman Road at some point needs to be improved, either road widening because of other activity or safety and other conditions for the township and the use of that road from one end to the other, it may require widening. It may never. It's largely, you know, agriculture through all that. But the deferrals, you know, generally the way it goes at our side. Probably before you go to the supervisor, I would get the township and discuss the opinion that was given by this township solicitor and see if you have further discussion needed. I'd probably do that before you go to the supervisor.
There's a time limit in the deferral agreement.
No.
It's open-ended.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your plans are to develop
Exactly, the smaller. But as I stated, we're not creating a new lot. He could sell that 3-acre lot. We're just attempting to keep as much in farmland and farming as possible. And, you know, by doing that, he's got to make a decision whether or not he or the next buyer, who will obviously pay less if there's a, you know, $50,000 improvement to put up. That may be called, and I'm not saying to put it in, it's a small road and it's not likely. Gonna be. Would you sign it? I mean, it's something that could happen. When the lot's probably worth 130 up to 40,000. Okay, am I gonna sign a piece of paper that's gonna put me on the hook for another $50,000 for it? Yeah. Would you? I mean, that's just a reality, sir.
Other questions from planning commission? Any comments, questions from the audience? Hearing none. Sarah King, lot add-on.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the board of supervisors for plan 2023-4 Samuel III, building lot on 2303 Lincoln Road. As proposed in the David Miller Associates letter dated March 31st, 2023, and in keeping with our practice. Supervisors wish to make a change to our practice. This is the planning commission has been to defer those as opposed to waive them. Because planning, our job is to look to the future. And just never know. It can't be an expense that's passed on to the township. So move that we recommend in accordance with David Miller Associate letter dated March 31st, 2023, as opposed to granting waivers, granting deferrals for both street improvements, curb and sidewalk, granting a waiver request on plan scale, and the planning commission letter, planning department letter, excuse me, dated March 29th, 2023. I can make some changes to the patient's terms of legal descriptions.
Yeah, second discussion, just clarification. An agricultural zoned area, sidewalks are not required. It would only be,
I think we can catch that.
it would be a road wide curve. So, and so I was thinking in your motion, because it's, the detail. Randy agreed to modify his verbal motion. With that, any other discussion? Favor or opposed?
In favor.
Favor. Randy's in favor. Jason? And myself also. So, and we're in favor of the motion. Pat.
Could I get a copy of the solicitor's comment?
I actually emailed that to you at 3 o'clock. Yeah.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is plan 2023-7 Park. Sketch plan.
Good evening. Rich Bernard, with Carter Gas Associates. I'm joined tonight by Fred Clark and Tom Felton, are the applicant, Calumet Enterprises LLC, which is affiliated with Clark Associates. So what I'd like to do is start out with an introduction tonight of why we're here. Going through the background on the project, the existing conditions. Then move into the proposed plan, the concept plan, and the board, and open the screen. And then move into some of the detail on stormwater management, utilities, and then talk about the status of where we're at in our process and where we would get ourselves going for next steps. So for the introduction, I mentioned the applicant Calumet Enterprises LLC. The purpose of our application for a sketch plan that will provide to the township is to look at redeveloping a portion of the property that's been identified, as well as consolidate the property to accommodate future growth. The sketch plan was submitted April 4th of this year, and we're keeping input from this group on our plan and our application, so we can take that feedback, make any necessary adjustments that are necessary before going to the board of supervisors for their. Being that this is the first step in the process of the sketch plan, we recognize that it is informal, but we do value the feedback. So we look forward to getting that to you. So as far as a brief background, the property itself, Clark Associates, is about 20-acre campus. It's in the I-1 light industrial zone along the northern side of the whole Philadelphia Pike, back and across from the township driveway. The address is 2257 Old Philadelphia Pike. There is agricultural land to the north. There's R2 residential lands to the east and R2 residential lands to the south across Philadelphia Pike. There are with existing this area and the private daycare and the associated utilities, stormwater management, and so forth. There are 5 vehicular access points along Old Philadelphia Pike as it exists today. But the subject of this application, what I want to clarify is, or I should say, are 2 parcels that are rendered on the plan there. They're the 2 eastern parcels. They make up about 2.6 acres and 9.8 acres. There are minor modifications on this parcel right in this area, but primarily what we're looking at is the 2 eastern parcels. However, we do know it's important. We've always gotten feedback from the township when you're doing your planning to look at the big picture. So that's why we show the entire collection of parcels. The drainage on the site is primarily to the north and south. There's a high point split generally in this area. You have drainage that goes this way towards the railroad track, and then drainage that comes towards the south. There's an existing facility, both collection and conveyance, before it gets piped under the basin driveway. Site from a utility standpoint is served by public sewer and water from the Township Authority and the City of Lancaster. So as far as the proposed concept, and really the reason why we're here tonight to talk about what we'd like to do, what we're looking at, is the proposed plan that you see again on the screen and on the board is to propose a 3-story, 36,000 square foot office building, a 70,000 square foot flex warehouse building, that's shown in the upper right, and then a reuse of the existing daycare building into offices and also continue a child care or daycare scenario with that building. I mentioned we would consolidate those 2 eastern parcels to accomplish this plan. As far as vehicular circulation goes, we would only utilize the 2 existing driveways shown here. This would be redone to accommodate the drive up as it enters into the site, and then the eastern existing driveway well serve the daycare. Existing truck traffic that serves the Clark properties today would continue to use this Shelley Drive, existing drive that is right here. And we don't anticipate with this plan being implemented that we would increase the volume to that existing driveway for trucks. The warehouse building that we're showing, we do show the access drive come all the way through to the back and around and provide a loading area in the back of that warehouse building itself.
Where pedestrian circulation goes, we put existing sidewalk along both of the pipes that existing today, that goes the entire front of the parkway. And we do have multiple internal connections of pedestrian circulation throughout the property and the campus. Parking, we know that's always a concern and a question for projects. So in terms of looking at the program, the office at 78,000 square feet would require 78 parking spaces. The warehouse, including 100 employees, would require 50 parking spaces. So that would be a total of 128 parking spaces. The plan, as we have it shown right now, proposes approximately 413 parking spaces. So the question comes up, why so much parking? And that was in the review letter as well. And the reason for that is back to my earlier comment about showing the big picture. We were looking at this as a planning exercise. We know the township likes to see the full build out of the project. We don't know at what time, how quickly this would build out, but we do want to think through everything and how much parking is necessary. Clark has been a long time business resident in the township. They'd like to stay here. They know they're growing, so they're trying to accommodate that growth. So in looking at the number of potential hires, they're looking at that equation for the amount of office space they would anticipate needing, as well as how to park that many employees on the property. Stormwater management, that comes into play with the additional impervious, whether through the buildings, through the parking. We've taken a high level look at that. We know stormwater will be handled via a combination of surface facilities and also underground detention facilities. Similar to the existing conditions, you have direct drainage to the north and direct drainage to the south. We put a dash here in the area where we probably have a sub-surface. Already basins, it charges out that east corner would essentially mimic that same condition. There's also, I mentioned, some detention in this area down here. We show an expansion of that to accommodate the increased drainage area, as well as we just again dashed in based on some very high level estimates, some areas horizontally that depict where we believe underground stormwater detention may be necessary. Sewer and water, as I mentioned, would continue to be served by the sewer authority of the township and the city of Lancashire. That's an overview of the proposed plan. As far as data and next steps, we have both a staff review on the sketch plan as well as a review from the township engineer. But we'll walk through a few points on that, and I'm happy if I don't hit some of the points that you may have questions about. I'm happy to talk about those as well. There's a comment about the access drive with the property and how it relates to this existing building, the new building. As we looked at that, internally after getting that review, we agreed it might make sense maybe to look at the reconfiguration and maybe swap some of that parking so it more relates to this building, and then you don't have that drive conflicting with people going to the existing building. So we appreciate that comment in the review. We will. The other emergency access. Looking at the ability to respond to a fire situation. This is the concept at this point. We talk about if necessary, maybe it involves a shift of the buildings to access around this side. Maybe it's a temporary, I should say temporary, emergency condition where you could do a grass pave on the east side of the building to have that 360-degree coverage. That is something we will also dig deeper into. And then traffic. It's on every project, just with stormwater management, it always comes up. So again, we took a high level look at that at the sketch plan stage. Based on some very preliminary estimates, it looks like the level of service would comply with the PennDOT criteria for the proposed program. The western driveway here would operate as a medium volume driveway, and then the eastern driveway is a low volume. Because of that, we would fully intend to do a truck restriction on that eastern driveway. So it's not good from a site distance standpoint here. So we know through our planning that this would be a restricted drive in terms of no truck traffic at that location. In looking at potential improvements that may be necessary for safe circulation, we looked at turn lane warrants. As you're obviously aware, being right out front here, there's already a striped center turn lane. And in quickly looking at some volume or trip generation, we'd have to just look at perhaps restriping a portion of that center turn lane to ensure there's adequate storage or queuing for cars wanting to make a left turn into the site. Another comment was about the daycare. One of the things we wanted to clarify was it was previously a daycare, I believe, open to the public. In this scenario, it would not be open to the public. It would be just for the use of the Clark campus and their employees. So there were some comments in there about circulation, potential drop off. In this case, not being open to the public, you're not going to have buses like you would have in a typical daycare, or you have buses coming through and having a dedicated drop off lane. I can relate to where I take my children for their daycare. It's a similar situation. You just pull into a parking spot, you get out of the car, you walk them to the door for security access and so forth. You get back in your car and you leave. That one doesn't have buses either. There was also a comment about the DMA letter, a bigger planning picture for potentially a bike or just the pedestrian circulation on the front of the property. So I wanted to bring that up this evening. Yeah, I mentioned there's already a 5-foot sidewalk that extended the entire length of the property. So we just wanted to learn a little bit more about that. It didn't seem like there was any improvement that would be necessary there. As far as curbing, there were some comments about curbing in there. We have no objection to looking at where curbing is appropriate. We looked in cases, I had to discuss this with the township engineer, see if you have any objections to cases where if we drain the stormwater this direction, instead of hitting it along the curb and directing it somewhere else, to go to the surface, it makes sense just to run that straight to this facility. So we'll look for opportunities like that to make sure curbing is in places where it's appropriate. So that's just a quick high-level discussion about the reviews received both from staff and from DMA. As far as next steps, where we would go from here, again, I mentioned taking the input, going to the board of supervisors, then taking that input, and then looking forward to hopefully going through the land development process. With that, it was identified in the DMA letter whether or not we anticipate any modifications or waivers. Always difficult to do at this level of the game, but we do know that we would request a waiver of the preliminary plan, being that we're not looking to have any public streets. We're not looking to create any new lots. We're not looking to do a phased final plan. So we would just ask for a waiver of the preliminary plan to just go through a single final plan for the project. And we also figured we're going to need some type of relief, as the ordinance describes it, in relation to the parking, that the board of supervisors need to offer input or take action on the fact that we would exceed 125% of the minimum requirement. And again, that's just a function of operations. I always say that our clients are not interested in building more parking or paying for more parking than they need. So they're looking and planning for what they believe they would need for the continued operation of their facility. A lot of information. I just wanted to do an overview and look forward to your input.
You're not demolishing anything, probably the only demo are the rec fields that are there.
There'd be some pavement demolition. Right now, there is a drive that comes across the front of the daycare center. And from our standpoint, we don't need it. And it's just additional impervious that we'd have to control with stormwater. So we are proposing the removal of that, add a little more green space there. And then just throughout the removal of pavement for plan. But as far as buildings go, we're showing, I believe, the full footprint of the structure. There would be renovations that would take place. We would all have to read.
I know you told us, but refresh me. Truck traffic. I thought you said at first would continue as a Shelley Drive to the western part would continue to be the entrance for trucks, but wouldn't the new one, the one further east, is that also for truck traffic to the new warehouse?
No, good question. I'll clarify that. So if we imagine the site as it is today, where this is not here, to serve the operations of Clark today, they have trucks come in this Shelley Drive. We're saying that when this is proposed, the operations where the trucks are coming in today, they would continue just to use this driveway today to do what they're doing today. And then when we have this proposed, any trucks that serve this building would use this driveway. So just keeping them separate.
Because the center left turn lane doesn't come all the way down to Shelley Drive, is that right? It only comes partway down?
Yeah, there's, you see the center turn lane here. It starts to transition right about at the property line and tapers down right there.
With the new warehouse, you will have more truck traffic,
There would be truck traffic introduced, yes.
so. And if they're coming from the east and they miss the first drive, they're gonna go in the second drive. But there isn't a center turn lane, so I guess there's some concern. Possibility of expanding that center turn lane further west to accommodate the existing entrance to Shelley Drive. Maybe the benefit of all just for getting in and out of the facility with the increased traffic. Having
Are we talking like crippling like truck traffic or like their truck traffic will actually do with building something like this? It's just out of curiosity. I mean, we think right. Yeah.
70,000 foot building. Buildings and stuff all over this county. Space, it's more of a storage building, but you just don't use that word anymore.
So it's not an active day-to-day in that.
I just need that person.
The question was just in the truck traffic, instead of having truck traffic at 2, couldn't you still direct your truck traffic to the existing roadway and allow it to go over across for the new warehouse, for the new storage facility? As opposed to bringing the truck traffic up through the, well, I'll call the corporate part of the campus, office building, daycare.
Yeah, it is a thought. I think we wanted to make sure we limit is use existing long bay of the parking. It's not ideal heading to the into there, so we didn't negate it.
Thank you. Space, that's what the 3-story office building is. Put office space, more office space back in that. It's just not mathematically possible. It's not economically possible to add more offices on that space. So that's just the best use of the space. That's what I call like the third phase of the plan. The first is to build a 36,000 building. Then we move the people that are currently in that. And then that'll just be
Yeah, your sketch plan is like a master plan. Really. You have 2 things at once here, a sketch plan, which is a master plan showing the whole site. We don't have any phasing, thank you. Where your first phase, second, and you're probably not even sure what second, third phases are, but but yeah, and thank you for clarification. I looked at the warehouse because you do a lot of distribution. I saw regular truck traffic bringing material in and others taking material out. I saw the whole backside of that building as being loading docks, loading and unloading docks.
And we don't have a distribution center smaller than 500 feet. Most of them.
Okay.
That's a story.
Well, now we, yeah. Which is why you're here.
Any consideration of pervious pavement as opposed to
You have experience.
We did it in that west parking lot off the offices, and it works great. It pours rain within 5 minutes. It's going.
there's maintenance to it, but you're taking a lot of permeable space away and potentially making it pervious. It might help you on the storm other side a little bit.
Forget your parking numbers, but you have at least triple, maybe 4 times the 125%. And you had 100 and some parking, but you're proposing 400 and something for build out but it appears what you're showing here is the master plan. What's the additional build out that would require all that parking based on the numbers you have now?
If you take a look at our existing campus and the amount of parking spaces, the amount of square foot of office space we're claiming. That the township's parking utilize all the space today, and literally the size of cubicles, what people even put in. Is it 1,000 square foot? 4 offices. 4 offices. That's ridiculous. Sorry, but it's not even.
Well, no,
Those numbers are for our existing campus. How many spaces we need based on space we have, and then we just duplicated it to this space.
You can use DIT. That's acceptable. And that's parking based on real world studies, so Chris
This
is,
is real.
yeah, so.
there are other statistics of what Colin is saying out there that are more current than the ordinance that you may use to do your calculations, and he just cited it for you. That would be a better reference for your when you come in to justify the parking you put in. We've seen different things, you know, where facilities have multiple shifts. You do 2 or 3 shifts.
Sure.
Well, the next shift gets there before the current shift leaves. So you need extra. And if that's the situation for you, that's important to know to justify.
Changing the world today,
What, yeah,
changing the whole thing.
well, thank you. That was the next one. But then you have the remote. So a lot of people don't come into the office.
Yeah, you don't show up on Wednesday. You're having free food and a food truck in for Wednesday. All of a sudden they're back at work.
Well, I know some other facilities in the township, you know, stagger start and end hours. You know, not everybody starts at 7:30, 8:30, so you don't have that traffic situation. And then the end times, of course, vary so that you don't get the backup traffic and the frustration and et cetera on the roads, but. Yeah, following Randy's of keeping the truck traffic where it existing is, then that's a greater argument on our side of continuing that turn lane further west on the roadway. So you'd have the stacking in the center instead of the, you know, you've probably all driven down west to the light. The road name at the church. It stacks back. It can be 30 part of the time. No, not that you're gonna have that here, but there's traffic on that highway. But if you get one truck wanting to turn, it stacks pretty quick.
Yeah, and I didn't mention, I should have, you know, obviously, Old Philadelphia Pike is a state highway.
Yes.
With a plan like this, we would certainly be going through a traffic impact study. We would not making sure we can meet all their safety criteria.
The existing daycare is in, you know, building, the school building.
There isn't a daycare now. It used to be an elementary school.
Yes.
There's no daycare now.
But you have a daycare then over on the western part of your property.
You know, we have a daycare in our Lidditz campus.
Oh,
This would be for our Smoot Town campus.
okay.
So it would be for the employees as far as like the dropping. I expect some employees are going to park.
Well, thank you. We run circulation. The next is pedestrian circulation. I have grandchildren now, but having been in the past, you know, they can come in and drop them off. They park there. They're going to go work. But where are they going to be at lunchtime? They're going to be over to see their kid. So pedestrian circulation is critical. All your buildings to your daycare, that they can easily get from one to the other without competing with cars coming and going at noontime to go grab a bite to eat somewhere or meet somebody, et cetera, just to avoid any vehicular conflict. And if you don't give them a route, they'll make their own route through your property, like a college campus. And they used to say you don't build.
I would also address, there's gonna be some type of non-use sidewalks with walking paths. That's one of the big benefits that people use one.
Yeah. I don't know what your lunch hour or half hour is. If they have an hour, you can see the parent getting the child stroller and taking a walk on a nice day like today on the property.
Back, they plan to play.
Yeah, there is any accommodation of what as far as outdoor seating, picnic area, shelter, canopy, et cetera. Where they could come out and be outside, but not in the sun, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, with the, the happy employee is the happy worker. Yeah. And some.
And they're very needy.
Yeah, but just accommodations for that throughout the facility, because you have a lot of roof and pavement and not a lot of green space, except your retention ponds, if you will. Once you have it built out, I mean, like you said initially, where the warehouse and the beer, build out, you don't provide for it now, you won't have it.
The official map comment should be disregarded. As mentioned, there's a sidewalk out front, and that's either proposed by or that sidewalk side, I don't appreciate movement there.
Yes. Comments from the audience in regards to this plan, sketch plan.
Any other way from this? What our goal is this evening, so as usual, we appreciate your input.
Our comments, you did talk about the comments and the DMA.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, but we move forward. Thank you for doing that. Continue dialogue, staff. Which we already. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you, Chris.
thank you very much.
Item on the agenda are briefing. First one, the furniture on Lincoln Highway 8.
This is a plan, 2533, I'm sorry, quick furniture, yes, it is a plan to be in the near future as a proposed hotel, I think around 120 rooms, and then 2 retail centers. In the near future.
This is the same parcel or part of the parcel we saw a few years ago for the 2 hotels.
Correct. There's been a few proposals for this property. Yeah.
Add on, if I add on just this small little piece
Correct, so yeah, right now it's about, it's. Mhm.
Reason I is the garden is out.
That's located at, we like to the Orthodox place, where, there'll be private. And it's gonna be a service shop. So we're gonna be seeing this in the building, it was recently examined. We are different for permitting. So it's to be a new building.
Is that the old stove shop?
Yeah.
The council was in there.
It was pretty bad, shady towards the back. Not a very nice site.
So yeah, you've seen it in here. Customers.
Okay. Yeah, right on the corner and just turned on them. Side of the building.
Let's act that way. Hang on. Sorry.
Did you have any, that was what you were here in reference to the.
Do I have any comment?
Yeah, or were you here for any other issue?
No. Make sure it's a light here. We like to move forward with here, we got development.
No. Other business? Any? Hearing none? Well, look for a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Jerry, do I have a second? Jason, all those in favor? None. Or unanimous.